we, like many young people, are finding ourselves connecting online, looking, searching, wanting community, right? We go online, we use social networks as a way to self-medicate ourselves in handling all of the trauma that we're constantly dealing with and experiencing. And
Well, the energy's building up.
right.
The thoughts keep circling and circling. Like how many of us had a really good night's sleep last night?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the thoughts are building and building. We're not sleeping. We get up and we see it over and over. We have to release that energy some way.
Yeah.
It can't sit in our body, but then it
Yeah.
turns into sickness, and that's how it manifests. So you have to channel it some way.
Right.
But you talked about the energies building up. Do you get the sense that mental health, mental illness, let's just call it what it is, do you get the sense that mental illness is up and more obvious than ever, or are we just paying more attention?
Studies are showing both. So studies are saying that we're talking about it more, so it's being diagnosed more, which means that the trend and the statistics is looking as if it's on the rise. I don't think it's on the rise. I think it's at the forefront now, and we can't ignore it anymore.
Right.
That's what's happening. So since we can't ignore something, we can't brush it under the rug, well then we have to deal with it.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Speaking about ignoring things and brushing it under the rug, right now we are constantly inundated with police lynchings happening online, and we're just taking it in. So my question to you is, what are some ways that we can disconnect in a healthy way to mind our minds and, be conscious of our mental health? Okay.
It's interesting. I just listened to a podcast the other day. It's called On Being. It's a very good podcast. And the host brought on this individual who just kind of like disconnected from online social media or whatever. And she talks about how, a large part of information or knowledge in our society, I think she said about 90% exists offline, so, it's not gonna be on Google or whatever, but her point being that, it's kind of like a willful effort to just go off if you're finding you're inundated with all this imagery and it's just depressing you. Being on Facebook depresses you after a couple minutes, seeing these videos depresses you, and, it, at the same time, even yesterday I found myself just continuing to watch the video on CNN.
Yeah.
And it's like, why am I watching this? And it's, making me feel worse. But then if I step away, it's like, what does that mean if I step away and I'm not looking and not taking that in? It doesn't mean I'm not caring about the situation, So I don't know how we can care about our communities but be plugged off or be offline, and but what that looks like, I'm not sure. But I think going to books, going to literature, looking at other ways of informing ourselves beyond just this online platform, just reading the newspaper or whatnot, I think it's a good route to take.
I think it's important to also know the role that you individually are going to play. So I wrote a blog way back during Ferguson that I'm self-aware enough to know I'm not going to be the one on the platform at the rally speaking. That's not me. That role is for someone else. I'm good at checking people at the door, handing out pamphlets. That is where I would be better suited at. So I think once you understand how you can be the best you for the solution, that's going to be helpful. So I'm not going to lay in bed at night and be like, let me try to organize a rally, because I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is say, well, I need to be plugged in to where the rally is at and see where I can volunteer or see what I can do, because that's what I could do.
Right.
And that, I think that's very helpful. Another coping skill is take some of that stuff out of your feed. Everyone is not in my Facebook feed. Every friend is not in my Instagram feed. We might be very good friends in regular, life, but if your Facebook feed or your Instagram feed or your Snapchat, whatever it is, if it's a lot of foolery that I don't want to come into my life, you're going to get unfollowed. And I think people are so, we're scared to do that. We're scared to say, I don't follow you. We're scared to hit the unfriend button. But this is my energy. And I have to put a shield up. And I have to be protective of myself.
Yeah.
So you can have that. You can have all the foolery you need and whatever. I don't need to be receptive of that. And I think that has been very helpful.
Yeah.
And that's a concrete coping skill that absolutely works.
Yeah. I unplug. I get the information I need. I have a full understanding of what the media's job is. They're not there to heal us.
Right.
They're there to sensationalize, to exploit the story. This is why they keep showing that Facebook social media video over and over and over. And I think your audience needs to understand, unplug, stop watching that, because that's to desensitize us. That's so we can just get used to seeing black bodies being killed. So unplug.
Traumatizing.
It is traumatizing. And we're talking about individual trauma, but collectively, the African Holocaust is ongoing. So you have to find ways to unplug. So that's the first thing, is I would unplug. Get the information, unplug. Because you don't need to keep watching the same scene over and over and over, okay? That's one thing. The second thing, find your role.
Yeah.
Find what is your role, what's your purpose, and you better be clear on your role. Are you going to protest? I personally don't believe in marching. I don't believe in carrying signs that say stop killing us. Why am I telling my oppressor to stop killing me? I would rather preserve my energy for the meeting. Let's meet. Let's stop our interdivisions. We can argue all day about what I want to call myself, what you want to call yourself, gender this, gender that, straight hair, natural hair. We can keep going with our divisions. But let's at least agree on one thing. They're killing us. Can we agree there and then take it from there? Take care of yourself. If you need to go soak in a tub, shut off all the noise except some nice music if you need to. I'm Haitian. We're big on ancestry stuff. You all know that. At least the ones who speak Creole. The one who speak French, I can't. That's a whole other story. But talk to your ancestors. Ask for guidance. Ask for peace. In terms of social media, I don't participate in hate mongering, messages and stuff like that. And I think people know me by now, so it doesn't come to me. I think if you welcome it, it will come to you. So there are things like that. And then, of course, hug your child, hold that child, love that child. These are some really testing times for us. And we really have no business quarreling with one another when we're all being killed. So that's what I personally would prefer to do. Unplug and plug back in with the collective.
I think to pick back up on your point, even with that podcast, what she's talked about is like, by going to the ancestors or going to the books or whatever, or literature, you're kind of caring for these ideas that have been replaced with the online. And like you said, we don't even necessarily need to go online because we know that these killings are happening.
And
You don't-
have been for a
A long time. So it's not like you need to see these videos to learn anything.
Right.
And whether the situation is different to what is going on now, like, a shooting where, the person did charge at the police officer or whatever, the fact of the matter is someone died that the force needed to be excessive. So again, reading the newspaper might be a better way to unplug and still be informed. But then going back to the fact that there are texts, ancestors, things that have been written to help us deal with this, that we can return to be able to kind of like understand what has happened. This is not new, like you said.
Yeah.
African Holocaust, this is not new. So watching these feeds is not necessary, personally. And I think even after, I'm gonna be cutting off I'm already off, social media, really.
Yeah.
CNN just needs to go away.
Yeah.
There are still many of us who get the majority of our information online, especially the younger generations.
Yeah.
And the way that social media is coming together now, it's connecting generations. So you're connecting with your family and your friends overseas oftentimes. And when you're online, you're looking not only to yourselves, but you're also looking to public figures and celebrities and performing artists for their role in these political conversations, especially on Black lives and our lives matter, Black lives matter. And so right now we're seeing more conversations from the likes of Beyonce and Kendrick Lamar and even Issa Rae, an actress who got her start on YouTube. She's doing a lot right now around crowdfunding and making sure that she's creating opportunities for the children of Sterling, right? So much so that right now she's raised in one GoFundMe effort over $600,000 through crowdfunding. So there's a lot happening online, right? So with that having been said, we often hear the revolution will not be televised, and it most certainly will not come across your newsfeed. But if you are online, what can we do as #activists to really ensure that we're spreading a message of mental health, healthy mental health? You know what I mean? Like, and care.
I think we have to define what mental wellness is, because a lot of us are walking around with assumptions of what feeling good is, right? So if I look good, I feel good, and not necessarily true. So I think first we should define what mental wellness looks like, feels like, right? If you're self-empowered, that's mental wellness. If you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I like this person, that's mental wellness. That's a sign of mental wellness, right? If you need a whole lot of accessories, or you need to go to the gym to put a lot of muscles on in order to feel good about yourself, you might want to look at that. That may or may not be mental wellness. I think it helps to define it first. And, we're tribal people, so we probably are going to argue about what mental wellness is. So maybe if we can come up with some kind of common ground, so we can move on to the next place. What does mental wellness act like? What's the action of the feeling, right? And individually, what's the action? And collectively, what's the action? I think social media has its purpose, obviously. I think there's a lot of good in social media. Social media is like TV. You have that control. You decide whether you want to watch PBS or Wendy Williams. It's really up to you. So I think we can use social media the same way. I was watching, we talked about the